Hey everybody, Robo here for Sin and Sci-Fi. Way back when my late friend Greg Javer found out from me that John Gilmore had said that Ed Wood had worked at France Books, he gathered around a posse. Amongst those people were W. Paul Appel and James Pontolillo. We went in on a lot of books, and Greg had them scanned. At the time, he had a deal with somebody that did that when he mentioned them on his podcast, the Ed Wood Summit podcast. That enabled not only everyone in that quartet to read the books, but also Jim had done some textual analysis using some terms he had come up with. I think we added phrases, things that we thought might be good indicators if a work was Wood. Later on, Greg and I started an Indiegogo campaign, and there were about a dozen people that were generous enough to give us some money so we could buy more France books. Unfortunately, save for maybe a story or two in the France magazines, we never definitively found Edward Jr. His work in a France novel. Um, Back when the Indiegogo campaign was complete, Greg was supposed to have made a video of the things he used his half of the proceeds to purchase, but he never got around to it. His partner, she was nice enough to send me his France books collection, and I'm going to share that with you now. The box was so big, I need to split this up into three parts. The first part will be France books. The second will be France magazines, which I'm going to need to dig into, as I'm not familiar with them. I know of them, but I've never seen the contents. He sent me a couple scans of a couple stories from some of them. I recognize those, but I'll need to dig into those to see who's writing in them and that kind of thing. And the third haul will be non-France books, but books that were written by France authors. And then there just might be some ancillary things that are related. So let's start with the first part of the haul, France books. This is F2, Male Nympho, written by Duke Shannon. The uh, woman on the cover, the model, sorry, couldn't think of that word. It was on the cover of a France magazine. I'll flash that up on the screen. It's a magazine that both Greg and I had discussed at some length and made a lot of mistakes by jumping in and talking about it a little too early. We're a little green, but this cover, at least not the illustration, but the photograph, was taken by a guy named Ralph Poole, and he primarily took pictures of automobiles. And the publisher of France books, that was an area he came from. I'm going to do a video on him alone, so I won't name drop him yet. But they worked together on automobile magazines, and then again in France books. Ralph Poole. I'll tell about Ralph Poole when I tell about the publisher of France books, who's an interesting fellow. Um, Duke Shannon. I think I might have figured out who he is. It took a long time. He was someone we thought could be Edward because the name is that of a character on, I think it was Wagon Train, some Western on TV. So it was a quick red flag when we first came across that name. But I'll talk about Duke Shannon another time. Of interest always is the France flag, and I came to realize much later, if you look really close, there's a little mark here, an accent. So I don't know, was it Francais? I don't know. Also, this one has the international edition stamp. That was not part of the printing process. That was something that was added later on. There's the back. There's Duke Shannon. F2. Next up is Ring a Ding Lover, and this is by Seth Ehrman. And for some reason, Greg had three copies. And when I first read this one, I haven't read the Duke Shannon. When I first read this one, it set off some alarms. It starts off kind of brutally in a way, if you're familiar with Orgy of the Dead, which Ed Wood wrote. Someone else directed it, but Ed Wood was involved in production on that one as well. It has an Orgy of the Dead feel at the beginning, and then there are movie stars that are one is lesbian, and so it just kind of was a curiosity, but there wasn't enough to go by there. It just says Airman on the side here, but Seth Airman, I think, is on the title page. And as Jim once pointed out, these are both chaos deities, Seth and Airman. There's Seth Airman. Airman once appearing once or twice, actually, in Conan the Barbarian, the novels. Um, so anyway, this is F3. There's three F3s. Um, so yeah, moving right along. F4, Time Out for Sex. And this one was by Dirk Novak. We never got anything on Dirk Novak. And I can't, oops, that's a fold out cover and I can't show it to you. But the cover's kind of interesting. It's back. I haven't read this one except for maybe the beginning of it, and I don't know who Dirk Novak is. Next up, Frank Maline, The Fair Sex. The subtitle is Life of a Las Vegas Cab Driver. And there's a number of Frank Malines at France. I don't know who he is. And I think most of his books have to do with Las Vegas, but we never were able to connect that to anything. Frank Maline, F5. And this cover was shot by Hal Guthu, who worked with Ed Wood on a myriad of films. Sometimes Ed Wood directed, sometimes Ed Wood just wrote or appeared in them. Anyway, this is 1962. France books scanned from they ran rather from 1962 to 1963. It's going to tell you more about the title page, but I passed on that. This title is another Frank Mullane title. This is F11, and don't be offended by door-to-door rape. This one, we can pull this one out for you. Hopefully YouTube doesn't censor me because I'm not showing any nudity. This is another Ralph Poole. I'll have to get on it to talk about Ralph Poole and the publisher. There's the back. Next up is F12, another Duke Shannon. Ding-a-ling Broad. What was the other one called? Ring-a-ding Lover and Ding-a-ling Broad. But let's see, this is the F12. I could maybe show you the cover, but I think it's a little too much. This is another Hal Guthu. I didn't know that. Thought I only did two. Cool. And France Books was located at 8340 Melrose Avenue in Hollywood. The zip code was just 69, dudes. Back. Next up is F13. This is another Hal Guthu cover. This is F13, if I didn't say that already. The author of The Broads Make the Odds is Steve Bartdorf. Bartdorf. And I'll have to get back to you, but I think I cracked this. This is a pseudonym, and I thought I cracked it once, and then I thought I cracked it twice, and I think I got it right, but it's not anybody you would know, but I just found the person's real name. Um, anyway, I think because Ed Wood had written a screenplay regarding football. Um, this is a football novel, and I think Greg was interested in knowing if that was an Ed Wood book, but I can't remember what we if he read it or not. I haven't read it, so I can't tell you who wrote it. F-16 Carnal Woman, and that's by John Rutherford. Let's see that the remainder mark is a hole punch. Sometimes they're notches, like saw cuts. I can show you this one. Double hole punch. So, Greg always had a hunch. That's another Ralph Poole. I really got to tell you guys about Ralph Poole. Um, Greg thought John Rutherford and another name were linked, and it was just a hunch. And when I get to it, it's in this stack. You'll see why. But I learned all about that connection, and it should probably be its own video. But I'll let you know which two combine. Here's good old Silent Sex. That's by our friend Jim Harmon. It's kind of a neat back cover, because it tells you all the characters involved, including a horse, I believe. Yep, even Billy, Tom Mason's horse. He delighted in tearing the clothes off a lowly script girl. I remember back when Greg and I interviewed Jean Marie Stein, she remembered this Jim Harmon book. Jim Harmon had written for the sci-fi pulps in the 50s. She remembered that horse. Sure enough. This one, I'll probably show it to you. This is a very enjoyable novel about Hollywood and a cowboy actor. If you didn't know it was Jim Harmon, you might think Ed Wood was involved. They wrote very similarly in sleaze, because Jim Harmon wrote differently when he wrote sci-fi, but there's a lot of things that are similar in their writing. Sometimes I even wonder, since they knew each other, if Ed Wood had written, or excuse me, had read Jim Harmon and learned to write sleaze novels from him. I have nothing to base that on. This is a Ralph Poole cover. He's all over France, more than I thought. I have a copy of this, and it's signed. I might. I offered some of these to Jim and Paul. Paul just wanted one that he and I had discussed before on the show. But since they had helped purchase the lot, I'll offer these duplicates to Jim. If he's not interested, I might put them up for sale to help buy more France books and epic books. Kind of close to having the whole collection. Um, Hot Load. It's number 23, Will Saxon. I don't think we ever figured out who Will Saxon was. Oh, can't show you that flip out cover by any means. Um, I might be able to tell you who took it. We're still in 1962. This cover is by Eddie Rocco, who we've never heard of before. I haven't seen this book before. I think we might have had a scan of it, but I can't. I didn't get around to reading it. Um, Interesting, woman of potentially a woman of color in 1962 on the cover there. This cover always made Greg laugh because of the title, Lion Lover. You can see that France flag gets bounced around on these covers. If I recall correctly, this one kind of had to do with a body hair fetish, but I didn't read it. I just kind of remember that because I was curious enough to know what lion lover, what is that? But I should have read this. Can't show you the fold out cover. I should have read the back covers and stuff before I did this, just so I could be a little more acquainted with them. But some of these, as you can see, are surprises to me. We don't know who took the picture of the cover, um, but we are now into 1963 with F-28. There's two F-29s. Jazz Me Baby. And it says Kelly on the spine. As you'll see, these authors didn't get any credit on the covers, just the spine and the title page. But this is 1962, so these are, even though this one came later, it was written before the other one, or at least copyrighted before. So I know who Carl Kelly is. We learned it from a bookseller, and I don't want to give it away yet. I think I'll have fun with the video with that one. Um, Very interesting guy, to say the least. Yeah, that one's definitely will be its own video. Next up, no, flags moved up here. F-38, Wonton Women. It's another Will Saxon. We never figured out who Will Saxon was. Let me show you that one. These pages are so brittle. I'm afraid to dig into this. 1963 photo posed by a professional model. I'll just read the back cover. I haven't really paid much attention to that in this video. I tried to ignore the lovely flesh so close to me by lighting up a cigarette to keep my hands busy. Wanda took it out of my lips after I had inhaled one drag and kissed me. The touch of her gin-flavored mouth sent a jolt down through me, racing ahead of the martini and much deeper. Wonton Women. See the key. Way back when I did a video about the keys. I'll link. Well, you can find it. Just scroll through the videos when early on. I did a whole video on those keys. They're on most of the covers. Link right there. Big Mama, Adam Coulter. Um, we thought this one might be Ed Wood, but it is not. But there are some things in it that made us scratch our heads for a long time. Adam Coulter was a that is not his real name, but that is the name he used 99% of the time. You can find his work at other places besides France Books, and he was one of the people who got in trouble with Milton Leros at another publisher in 1964, obscenity charges. Um, yeah, this is 1963, F-42. I will save the story about Adam Coulter. He wrote a number for books for France. A Place Named Hell by MJ Deere. What are we up to now? F-50. There's the back cover. I did a video on this, so you can look for it. MJ Deere is George H. Smith, who was a science fiction writer, and he wrote into the 80s, I believe. And his wife's name was Mary Jane Deere. That was her name before they were married. And she supposedly helped with this. And it's based on a sci-fi story he had written in the 50s. He got started in the early to mid 50s. And this one was rewritten and filled out, and it has sleaze in it. The other one's, I think, suitable for children. I think the hero, Terrence O'Mara, uh, kisses a girl maybe on the lips, but maybe even on the cheeks. But it's a lot steamier in a place called Hell. Um, I recall Greg sharing this copy with me because there were two things very interesting about it. One is there is a return address label on the cover there. That is the Ackerman Agency. 4EJ Ackerman was George H. Smith's agent, And this was in his possession at one time. The other thing that is funny is this was once owned by, I can't know if this will come out clearly, a bookseller. What is it? Maurice Renault. It was in Paris. Somebody thought it was a French book, but France was just, to make these books maybe perhaps wilder than books written or published in America. These were French books. Ooh la la. But there's nothing French about them except somebody thought so on Rue de Florence. That was F-50 if you're keeping count. F-58, Convict Lust by Robert Wallace. That's a very common name, obviously, but in pulp, you'll see it a lot. And I was never able to make it the connection. It was the same person that wrote mysteries and whatnot. This is 1963. We don't know who shot the model. Big Swede needed the money, so he tried very hard to ignore the fact that $200 was a lot of money just for the use of his welding equipment for a few hours. Where does that go? I don't know. Sin Model. Sin Model is F-59 by J.D. Ford. Back. This one was sold in Canada. I don't know, originally or in a secondhand bookstore. But this is the one I can find it in my other stack here without knocking it over. J.D. Ford, John Rutherford. Greg thought there was a connection. There was a connection. Um, I'm going to do a video on it. Uh, but I can tell you this is one person, and we have yet another husband and wife team. And I'll tell you how I figured that one out. Um, but moving right along, F-63, there's two of them. I always wonder if Greg, when he would buy extras, if he just sometimes he'd be like, "Oh, I found it for $5. I'll get another one," or if he had some inkling that Ed Wood was there. This is F-63 Dominic Plato Terry. There she is, Terry. I don't know anything about Miss Terry. I don't know who shot Miss Terry, but it's 1963 by Dominic Plato. And First American Printing, that's on all of these. There's kind of a joke about it. If you listen to the Laid Bare CD by John Gilmore or read the book Laid Bare, I can't remember if he mentioned it in the blurb. There's a short piece in Cinerama. I recently got the Cinerama expanded edition because I had sold my hardback, which had a beautiful cover years ago when times were tough. And the new one had more stuff in it by John Gilmore. And it made me think that his Ed Wood story was a bunch of baloney. Terry had to get rid of her husband, those pesky men. Once she knocked him on the head and dumped him into the river. But as the saying goes, a bad penny. Another time she shot him. Between those two attempts, however, she angled with another man. No, she angled with other men, excuse me. The daughter of one, and she wrestled with her conscience. But she was not at all prepared for the final horror, which sent her into the monstrous world of paranoia. Finally and irrevocably. Terry's winding down here, just three left. This is F-64, Confessions of a Movie Star. This one's another Dominic Plato. I don't know who Dominic Plato is. He writes about Cheetah. Not Not Tarzan's cheetah. This is Chita, cheetah. 1963, professional model. We don't know who shot her. This one is interesting because the flag disappeared. I once did a thing. Maybe it was the key video, but the key disappeared too. Look, it just says key now. No flag. This one is the spine is upside down. Vacation for Sex. F68 back cover. The black silk negligee rippled suggestively, outlining her sensual hips and firm white thighs. Always wonder if all these ellipses on covers, um, the blurbs as they call them, or even in comic books, they use a lot of, if that's where Ed Wood picked up his use of overuse of the ellipses. Anyway, Vacation for Sex was written by Rod Harding. I don't know who that is, but I always thought maybe it was kind of like a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing, like hard rod, if you will. Here we'll find that International Publications, which was the producer of these France books, has moved to 10539 Burbank Avenue. I'm gonna have to do a story on that. I found the first location. It's kind of an undescript building in LA, but it still exists. And it moved to another one, and that was eventually I think they got bought out. A lot of times these things were fly by night, they're just skirting the law of what was allowed, afraid of being arrested and tried for obscenity. So sometimes these, Epic Books was 1961 to 1962, France 1962 to 1963, and they're gone. But I kept finding magazines with that key by another publisher, and so I don't know if they bought out the publisher's stuff or whatnot. But that's what I found at that address. I'll do something about the two addresses. So this is the last book in Greg's France Books Hall, and A Man's Guide to the Sexual Scene. And I'll just read the whole thing out for you. That's all the cover is a bunch of text. Stag movies, exotic pinups, sex instruction, marriage manuals, news about nudists, how to meet a mate by mail, sex stimulants, fantastic foreign photos with the Photos, aid to manliness. Know the facts. Buy this book. It was compiled by Jake Lee. There's once a fella who thought Jake Lee was Ed Wood, but I read this. There's not much to it. It's kind of like, here, I try not to show you anything naughty. Maybe if I just do it far away. It's just ads from like what would be in the back of men's magazines or other kind of magazines. Well, these are all pretty much. So this is just a cheap excuse for a book. It's not an F number. It's an E5. This is the Elite series. There's five. So all in all, we used to call it the France 75, kind of a play on the uh, drink, just like we used to say the France Revolution and the France Connection, Ed Wood at France Books. Um, but yeah, someone thought Jake Lee was Ed Wood, and after reading this, there's no evidence for the. Uh, there's someone's signature in here. Somebody thought it was important to keep this in their collection, but eventually let it go. But each section of ads is curated. And I do remember a couple things since somebody thought this was Ed Wood. And this name is used in various iterations in the France magazines. Um, Jake Lee is, and can't remember exactly. Like there's a middle initial here and not there, or it's mixed around Lee J. I don't know. I can't remember offhand. Anyway, there's a couple of things in here that I could see why somebody might think it's Ed Wood, and it's been a while since I've read it. Maybe I'll put some bullet points here or something to tell you why someone thought that and why I could see at first glance. It's just not enough. There's so little text that you couldn't. say this is Ed Wood, but there are some interesting things. I'll just put up some bullet points of the ones that stand out. And as I recall, there's a vampira corset in here, and that kind of made me laugh. But he would have no choice in what ads they threw in here. But I just thought that was funny. She had appeared in his movie Plan 9 from Outer Space. But anyway, there were some other things about being in the military. Ed Wood was a Marine. He served in World War II, and some other things that were kind of ambiguous about certain things. Anyway, that's the end of the first haul. I'll be back with the magazine haul, and then again later with the books that are related interest. All right, this is Robo for Sin and Sci-Fi. Thanks for hanging in with me, and I'll see you next time. Take care.